So any idea about TestNG, guys? What is TestNG? Have you heard anything about TestNG?
Not in detail, Neetu.
Even I'm not aware of it.
Okay. So TestNG is basically a unit testing framework wherein developers used to use this TestNG for doing their unit level testing, right? So all the components which requires a unit level testing for a small test cases, they used to use the TestNG for testing their components, right? So this is a framework, right? Usually it comes up with so many features, right, which you have to use along with your Selenium, because Selenium does not have so many inbuilt features, right, like grouping of the test cases, prioritizing test cases, reporting, etc. That does not come with Selenium, so you will have to use any of the testing framework for that, right? So in TestNG, it is basically a systematic approach. So the full form of TestNG is testing next generation. Testing next generation, right? And it is a systematic approach for automating software application. Right, and it is an optimized way. Okay, so TestNG, I mean, if you specifically talk about TestNG, so TestNG is testing framework which was designed to simplify the broad range of testing needs from unit testing to system testing, right? So initially it was developed only for unit testing, but now it is being used for all levels of testing. So as I said, TestNG was initially used by developers to do their unit testings, but now it is being used at all level of testing. Being used at all level of testing. Okay, and TestNG is open source. Anyone can use it. It's open source. It's open source, and so TestNG is basically inspired by JUnit and NUnit, right? So which and introduce some further functionalities. JUnit and NUnit, and introduce some new functionalities. Okay, so some of the testing framework which you can use with different languages are different, right? So for Java, either you can use JUnit or TestNG, right? So you cannot use any other testing framework. With C#, .NET, you can use NUnit. With PHP, you can use Behat plus Mink, right? With Ruby, you can use Repack or test::unit. So these are the testing framework which you need to use for that specific language. Python, you should use PyTest or PyUnit. So PyUnit or Py::test. Okay, so these are the framework you will have to use with respective languages in Selenium. Now what we are going to discuss in TestNG is we will first understand how to install this, install TestNG and write your first test case. First test case. Then second would be like creating multiple test cases. And run. Third would be TestNG annotations. Fourth would be executing multiple test cases using XML file. So we will create a TestNG XML file and we will run multiple program classes using XML file. Multiple program classes using XML file. It would be grouping of test cases. Grouping of test cases. Prioritizing test cases. PCs. Then next would be data-driven testing using @data provider annotation. Then parallel testing, we will understand how to achieve parallel testing. Or in a way, cross-browser testing, right? How do we do cross-browser testing? Okay, so that is one thing. Now, what are the advantages of the TestNG? How the TestNG is helpful? Disha, are you aware about any advantage of TestNG?
I don't know. In depth, I don't know.
Okay, so we have annotations in TestNG, and those annotations are easy to create test cases. Annotations are helpful to create test cases, or they are quite easy. Test cases can be grouped and prioritized more easily. Prioritized more easily. Now TestNG can execute multiple programs or classes using XML. Can execute multiple programs or classes using XML file. Okay, we can achieve parallel testing or cross-browser testing. Cross-browser testing or data-driven testing. Right, so we don't have these all features with Selenium. And TestNG generates detailed report, detailed test work, because we don't have anything called test report in your Selenium with your Selenium. Okay, so these are the common advantages of the TestNG. Now the next is how to import TestNG in your Eclipse. So I think in mine it is already there. Yeah, it is already there. So let me do one thing. Let me delete this. In your Eclipse, go to your help section and then Eclipse mark, not Eclipse, sorry. From here also you can do, but we will do it from install new software link, and there you will have to paste this link and then add, and then here write the name TestNG, add. So it will just search for TestNG, and then just check this box, and you don't have to do anything, and then click next. It will take some time, and then your TestNG will be installed. Okay, so accept, finish, and here I got all the libraries from TestNG. No, not yet, it is installing. Installation is going on.
अगर ये पहले से हो अपने सिस्टम में तो where I can see that. I just want to check if it is there, and if it is there, I need to install new. So how can I perform that action?
So if it is there in your system, it will reflect with your project.
It will be in the reference libraries, or no, it will be TestNG XML should be there, right?
No, not XML. XML you have to create.
Okay, then. Okay.
1 second, let me help you with that. Just give me a minute.
Sure.